Maya Sterling had always believed that control was the foundation of everything worthwhile. At 34, she had built her life like one of her own architectural designs. Clean lines, precise angles, no unnecessary flourishes. Her days were mapped out in color-coded calendar blocks. Her decisions weighed with the same meticulous care she applied to structural loads and material specifications. Chaos, she often told her junior associates, was simply a problem that hadn't been engineered properly yet. That Tuesday in late March, however, Chicago had other plans. The sky had turned an angry slate gray by mid-afternoon, the kind of color that swallowed light and spat it back as menace. Maya had just finished a 3-hour client meeting in a Gold Coast penthouse, where a hedge fund billionaire had demanded 17 separate revisions to the master bathroom layout alone. Her head throbbed with the memory of his nasal voice insisting that the marble veining didn't speak to him. All she wanted was the 40-minute drive home to her and David's sleek River North condo, a scalding shower, and perhaps a glass of the Sancerre chilling in the sub-zero. She eased the BMW X3 out of the underground garage and onto Oak Street. The first fat drops hit the windshield like warnings. Within minutes, the sky opened completely. Rain fell in vertical sheets so thick it felt solid. The wipers slapped uselessly at maximum speed, clearing only momentary arcs before the water rushed back. Visibility dropped to 10 feet, then 5. Headlights from oncoming traffic became smeared halos of white and red. Maya's knuckles whitened on the leather-wrapped steering wheel. She wasn't afraid of driving in rain. She had navigated Chicago winters for 15 years, but this was biblical. The streets were turning into rivers. Storm drains gurgled and overflowed. Cars ahead braked erratically, their taillights blooming like warning flares. She needed off the main arteries. Michigan Avenue would be a parking lot soon. Trusting muscle memory and years of crisscrossing the city for site visits, she flicked on her right turn signal and veered onto a narrower, tree-lined side street just south of the Mag Mile. The canopy of mature oaks offered the illusion of shelter, though the branches thrashed wildly overhead. That was when she saw it. The familiar limestone facade of the old 1902 building she had always admired. Its recent restoration had preserved the ornate cornice work while modernizing the ground floor into the Lumina Gallery and Lounge, ACI, place she had attended half a dozen openings for. The gallery showcased cutting-edge abstracts. The upstairs lounge catered to the city's discreet moneyed class, perfect, dry, close. She spotted an open parking space half a block away, pulled in with more force than grace, and killed the engine. Rain hammered the panoramic sunroof like fists. Maya grabbed her Hermes bag, more shield than accessory, and held it above her head as she dashed for the entrance. Her mid-heel Louboutin slapped against pooling water. Cold droplets snuck inside her collar and raced down her spine. The heavy glass door resisted for a heartbeat, then gave way. Warmth and quiet enveloped her instantly. The scent hit first: dark roasted espresso, polished walnut. A faint thread of sandalwood from the incense diffuser near the hostess stand. Low golden lighting bathed the room in intimacy. Abstract canvases in violent crimsons and electric blues dominated the walls. Perhaps 15 patrons occupied the space, couples murmuring over wine, a lone man reading on a tablet, a small group clustered near the floor-to-ceiling windows watching the deluge. Maya exhaled, shoulders dropping half an inch. She peeled off her sodden Burberry trench and hung it on the discreet brass rack by the door. Her dark hair, normally pinned in a flawless chignon, had surrendered to the humidity. Damp strands clung to her neck. She smoothed them back with trembling fingers and turned toward the marble bar, already imagining the heat of an Earl Grey steaming in her hands. That was the precise moment the world tilted. In the farthest, most shadowed corner, near the window overlooking the tiny interior courtyard, sat David. Her husband of 7 years, the man whose dry humor balanced her intensity, whose quiet steadiness had anchored her. Through every career crisis and late-night deadline, he wore the charcoal Brioni suit she had chosen for him last Christmas. The burgundy tie loosened just enough to signal the end of a long day. He was not alone. A woman with cascading blonde waves sat across his lap. Facing him, her arms looped possessively around his neck. Her body curved into his in a way that spoke of long familiarity, of nights and mornings and whispered secrets. David's left hand rested openly on the small of her back, fingers splayed against pale silk. His right hand loosely cradled a half-full glass of red, Cabernet, probably the 18 Camus he favored. The glass tilted forgotten as he leaned into her, lips close to her ear. Maya's mind, trained to analyze sightlines, proportions, load-bearing capacities, refused the image at first. Optical illusion, trick of reflection, coincidence of posture. Then David lifted his gaze. Their eyes met across 30 feet of softly lit lounge. The color drained from his face in a single, visible sweep. Ashen, eyes widening to black pools of pure panic. His mouth opened, but no sound emerged. The wineglass froze in midair. His entire body locked as though someone had hit a kill switch. The blonde felt the shift immediately. She turned her head, irritation flickering across delicate features. "David?" Her voice was low, husky, intimate. "What's wrong?" No answer. She followed his paralyzed stare. Recognition hit her like a slap. The woman's face, flushed with pleasure. Seconds earlier, twisted into naked horror. She scrambled off David's lap with such violence that the armchair rocked. The wineglass wobbled. A few crimson drops spattered the beige carpet before. David's spasming fingers caught it. Maya knew her. Chloe Ashford? Chloe, who had laughed with her over brunches, who had gushed about wedding venues, who had once hugged her tightly and said, "You're the sister I never had." Chloe, fiancée of Marcus Thornton. Marcus, her oldest friend from architecture school, the one who had stayed up with her until dawn critiquing models, who had driven her to the emergency room at 3 a.m. when she'd sliced her hand on a utility knife, who had toasted at her wedding, with tears in his eyes and called, "David, the only man good enough. For you." The double betrayal landed like twin blades, one through the heart, one through the oldest, most trusted friendship she possessed. Maya's legs trembled. She took an involuntary step backward. Her shoulder blades met the cool plaster wall. One hand pressed flat against it for balance. Chloe stared back, mouth working soundlessly. Panic had stripped away her usual polish. She looked small, exposed, guilty. David remained frozen. The wineglass still clutched like a lifeline he no longer deserved. Maya felt something fracture inside her chest, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the clean, final snap of tempered glass giving way. She did not scream. She did not cross the room. She did not hurl accusations or demand explanations. Instead, she turned, slow, deliberate, almost graceful, and walked back to the entrance. Each step measured, each heel click precise against the polished concrete. She pushed the heavy door open. Rain roared in greeting. Down the 3 stone steps, across the flooded sidewalk, fumbling with the key fob until the BMW chirped and flashed its lights. She slid inside, slammed the door, and sat motionless for 3 full breaths. Her hands shook so violently that the seatbelt took 4 attempts to click. Then she started the engine. The tires spun briefly on the slick asphalt before catching traction. She pulled out, merged into the chaotic flow of emergency flashers and crawling traffic, and drove. No destination, just away. Away from the lounge, from the corner table, from the image now seared permanently behind her eyelids. Her husband with another woman on his lap, his hand possessive on her back, his eyes meeting hers in absolute terror. Away from the second worse image. Chloe's face when she realized who was watching. The storm outside matched the one inside her. Rain lashed the windshield. Wind shoved the SUV sideways. Maya drove on autopilot, obeying traffic signals through sheer reflex. Michigan Avenue, Lakeshore Drive, streets blurred into wet neon smears. Eventually, she pulled into the deserted lot at Millennium Park. The Cloud Gate. Sculpture, forever nicknamed. The Bean stood ghostly under security lights, rain streaming down its mirrored surface in silver rivers. She killed the engine. Silence, except for the drumming on the roof. Her phone lit up in the cup holder. David. She watched it ring. Once, twice, 3 times, voicemail. It rang again immediately. She reached over, pressed the side button until the screen went dark, and set it face down on the console. 23 text messages arrived in the next 10 minutes. She didn't read them. She didn't need to. She could already hear the script in her head. "It's not what it looks like. I can explain. Please just talk to me." She leaned forward until her forehead rested against the cool steering wheel. No tears came. Not yet. Only a cold, expanding certainty. This was not the end. This was the beginning of something much larger, much darker, and, strangely, much clearer than anything she had known before. She would survive it. She would understand it. And when the time came, she would make sure the truth, every brutal, irrefutable piece of it, saw daylight. Maya did not go home that night. The condo she shared with David, 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the glittering Chicago River had always felt like an extension of her professional identity, sharp, modern, controlled. Now the very thought of stepping through that door made her stomach contract. She could already picture the framed wedding photo on the entry console, David's arm around her waist, both of them smiling at the camera with the easy confidence of people who believed forever was a reasonable expectation. No, not tonight. Not ever again, perhaps. She opened the hotel app on her phone while the rain continued its steady, hypnotic assault on the windshield. The Langham Chicago appeared almost immediately, elegant, discreet, 5 minutes from where she was parked. She booked a premium suite for 3 nights. Then, after a long moment staring at the confirmation screen, she changed it to 7. 1 week to breathe, 1 week to decide what came next. The lobby smelled of fresh lilies and expensive leather. The night concierge didn't blink at her damp coat or the fact that she carried nothing but a handbag and the keys to a car still idling outside. He handed her the keycard with practiced courtesy and directed her to the elevators. The suite was larger than necessary. Beige walls, cream upholstery, a king bed that looked too pristine to disturb. Maya dropped her bag on an armchair, kicked off her ruined shoes, and sat on the edge of the mattress. Only then, in the absolute silence of a room designed for strangers, did the dam break. She didn't sob. She didn't wail. The tears came steadily, quietly, like groundwater rising until it overflowed. They ran down her cheeks, dripped onto the silk blouse she still wore, darkened the fabric in small, irregular patches. She cried for the marriage she had believed in, for the friendship she had trusted without question, for the version of herself who had walked into that lounge thinking the worst thing that could happen was a flooded street. When the tears finally slowed, she stood, walked into the marble bathroom, and turned on the shower until steam clouded the mirrors. She stayed under the scalding water until her skin turned pink and the ache in her chest dulled to something manageable. She emerged wrapped in the hotel robe, hair dripping, and sat at the small writing desk. She opened her laptop, not to work, but to document every detail she could remember from the lounge: time, position of the furniture, exact posture of their bodies, the color of Chloe's blouse, pale blush silk, the make of David's suit, Brioni, the one she bought him, the brand of wine. She was almost certain it was Camus. She typed until her fingers cramped, building a cold, factual record. Emotion had no place here. Evidence did. At 2:17 a.m., she sent 3 emails. The first to Eleanor Vance, the divorce attorney whose name circulated in Chicago's high-net-worth circles like a whispered threat. Subject line, urgent, consultation required. Body, single paragraph requesting an immediate meeting. The second to Marcus Thornton. She stared at the blank message field for nearly 10 minutes before typing, "I need to see you. Tomorrow, if possible. It's important." "I'm sorry." She hit send before she could overthink it. The third to Elias Thorne, a former Chicago PD detective now running a boutique private investigation firm. She had met him once at a charity gala. He had handed her his card with the dry comment, "Most people only call when they already know the answer they're afraid of." She attached a photo of David from her phone, recent, smiling, and wrote, "Full background and financial, deep dive on David Sterling. Discreet, fast, budget is not a concern." She closed the laptop, turned off every light except the small bedside lamp, and lay on top of the duvet staring at the ceiling. Sleep did not come. Instead, she replayed the scene in the lounge on a continuous loop, searching for any detail that might allow an innocent explanation. She found none. Morning arrived gray and damp. Maya dressed in the clothes she had worn the day before, now wrinkled and faintly smelling of rain, and checked out. She drove straight to Eleanor Vance's office in the Loop, a sleek suite on the 42nd floor of a glass tower that overlooked Millennium Park. Eleanor was waiting. Mid-50s, silver hair in a severe bob, eyes the color of gunmetal. She didn't offer platitudes or tissues. She offered coffee and a legal pad. "Tell me everything," she said. Maya did. Every detail, including names, dates she could estimate, physical positions, expressions. When she finished, Eleanor tapped her pen once against the pad. "Adultery is still fault grounds in Illinois if you want to pursue it," she said. "But more importantly, we need to secure assets before he knows you're moving. Community property doesn't forgive dissipation. If he's spending marital funds on this woman—" "He is," Maya interrupted. "I know him. He's meticulous with money. If he's cheating, there's a paper trail." Eleanor nodded. "Then we freeze what we can today. I'll file for temporary orders this afternoon. No contact provision. Exclusive use of the marital residence for you. Restraining order if he shows up at your office. You want the condo? Yes. Furniture, art, everything we bought together stays with the condo. He can have his personal items and whatever he brought into the marriage. Eleanor made a note. Children? None. Joint accounts? 3. Checking, savings, brokerage. I want them monitored. Done. Eleanor slid a retainer agreement across the desk. Sign here. I'll need a recent photo of him and any passwords you have for shared accounts. Don't log in yourself after today. He'll get alerts. Maya signed without hesitation. By noon, she had a new phone number, a new email address, and instructions to forward nothing from David to her personal devices. Eleanor's paralegal was already pulling property records and account statements. Next, Marcus. They met at a small, independent coffee shop near the Illinois Institute of Technology campus, the same place they used to study together. During their master's program, Marcus arrived looking like he hadn't slept. His usual easy smile was gone. His eyes were red-rimmed. Maya didn't soften the blow. I saw David and Chloe together yesterday, she said quietly. Intimately. She was on his lap, arms around his neck, his hand on her back. There's no misinterpretation possible. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, then dropped his gaze to the table. His hands clenched into fists so tight the knuckles whitened. How long? He asked. I don't know yet, but long enough that it looked practiced. He exhaled sharply, like he'd been punched. We sent the invitations last week. She was measuring her dress yesterday morning. Maya reached across the table and laid her hand over his forearm. I'm so sorry, Marcus. I wish it had been anyone else telling you. He didn't pull away. After a long silence, he said, I believe you. I don't want to, but I do. They sat in heavy quiet for nearly an hour. No tears from Marcus, just a stunned, hollow stillness. When he finally stood to leave, he hugged her tightly. Thank you for telling me, he whispered. Don't disappear on me, okay? We're going to need each other. I won't, she promised. That afternoon, Maya checked into a furnished short-term rental in the West Loop, 8B. Modern one-bedroom with high ceilings and no memories attached. She spent the evening unpacking the single suitcase she had retrieved from the condo while David was still at work. Clothes, laptop, important documents, her mother's pearl earrings. Nothing sentimental, nothing that carried his scent. Elias Thorne's first report arrived 4 days later via encrypted email. The affair had lasted at least 14 months. A luxury short-term rental in River North, leased in David's name but billed through his company as Client Entertainment. Payments disguised as consulting fees, credit card charges, dinners at Alinea, Les Nomades, Spiaggia. Weekend trips to Aspen and Napa. A $15,000 charge at Cartier, date stamped 2 days after Maya's birthday last year. She had received no jewelry from him that month. And then the fertility clinic. Multiple withdrawals from their joint account labeled prenatal services, ultrasounds, blood work, consultations, all time-stamped during a period when Maya had been traveling for work and David had claimed to be swamped with deadlines. According to Maya's own medical records, requested and forwarded by her gynecologist, she had not been pregnant, ever. Maya read the report twice, then forwarded it to Eleanor with a single line. Please advise on next steps for dissipation of marital assets and possible fraud. Eleanor's reply came within the hour. We have more than enough for an at-fault divorce and a strong claim on reimbursement. But if you want maximum impact, we wait. Gather more. Then choose the moment. Maya chose patience. She continued working, immersing herself in blueprints, client meetings, site visits. Colleagues noticed she was quieter, sharper, more decisive. No one asked why. She wore her composure like armor. David tried everything. Calls from new numbers, emails, flowers. Delivered to her office, returned unopened. A handwritten letter slipped under the door of her rental by a mutual acquaintance. She read none of them. She blocked every channel. 3 weeks later, David's mother called from an unrecognized number. Maya let it go to voicemail. Maya, darling, David is devastated. He says it was a terrible misunderstanding. Please just talk to him. We love you like a daughter. Maya deleted the message without replying. She began preparing. She compiled the financials into a clean, color-coded spreadsheet. She saved the investigators' photos, grainy surveillance, shots of David and Chloe entering the River North apartment together. She obtained the audio file from Thorne, a conversation between Chloe and an unidentified friend, recorded at a cafe. Chloe's voice unmistakable. It could be Marcus's, it could be David's. Honestly, I don't know. I was with both during the window. Maya listened to it once. then saved it in a password-protected folder labeled simply Evidence. She waited. David's 35th birthday arrived 4 weeks later. His parents had rented the ballroom at the Drake Hotel. 70 guests. Open bar, string quartet, a giant projection screen for toasts and photo montages. Maya received an invitation, gold embossed, addressed to Mr. and Mrs. David Sterling. She RSVP'd yes through the online portal using her new email. She chose her outfit carefully. A floor-length black gown, high neck, long sleeves, no jewelry except her mother's pearls. Simple, severe, unmistakable. She arrived 40 minutes late. The room hushed the moment she stepped through the double doors. David saw her first, his face drained of color. He started toward her, mouth opening in what might have been her name. Maya didn't look at him. She walked straight to the small raised stage, took the microphone from its stand and tapped it once. The sharp sound cut through the chatter like a blade. "Good evening," she said, voice clear and steady. "For those who don't know me, I'm Maya Sterling, David's wife. Or more accurately, his soon-to-be ex-wife." A collective gasp rippled across the room. She connected her laptop to the projector, the screen filled with her meticulously prepared spreadsheet. "I've been asked to give a toast to the birthday boy," she continued. "So I will. I toast to truth, because truth eventually sets everyone free." She clicked. The first column appeared, dates, amounts, descriptions. Over the past 14 months, David has spent approximately $187,000 of marital funds on expenses unrelated to our life together. Red dot on the Cartier line. September 28th, $15,000. I received no jewelry from Cartier that year. Click. Fertility treatments, prenatal care, ultrasounds, payments from our joint account for a pregnancy that was not mine. Audible shock rolled through the crowd. She played the audio file next. Chloe's voice filled the ballroom. "It could be Marcus's, it could be David's. Honestly, I don't know." Maya let the silence stretch after the clip ended. Then she opened the final file, a 5-second security still from the river. North apartment building lobby. Timestamped. David and Chloe, arms around each other, entering the elevator. She paused the image. "For anyone still hoping this is a misunderstanding," she said quietly, "this should clarify things." She shut off the projector. The room remained frozen. Maya set the microphone down, stepped off the stage, and began walking toward the exit. She paused only once, beside Marcus, who stood rigid, face ashen, staring at Chloe across the room. Chloe had her hands over her face, trying to disappear. Maya touched Marcus's arm lightly. "I'm truly sorry," she whispered. "You deserve to know." He gave no reply. His eyes never left Chloe. Maya continued walking. Past David, still rooted to the floor, a statue of shame. Past her own mother, silently crying into a napkin. Past David's parents, suddenly looking 20 years older. Through the ornate doors. Into the cool Chicago night. Her car waited at the curb. She slid behind the wheel, started the engine, and drove away without once checking the rearview mirror. The storm inside her had finally broken. Now the real reckoning could begin. The morning after the birthday party at the Drake Hotel, Chicago woke to a citywide whisper network that moved faster than any official announcement. By 9 a.m., screenshots of Maya's spreadsheet were circulating in private group chats among the city's architecture, tech, and high society circles. By noon, David's name appeared in a blind item post on a popular local gossip Instagram account with over 200,000 followers. Well-known tech exec's 35th birthday turned into public execution courtesy of soon-to-be ex-wife. Cartier receipts, fertility clinic bills, and a paternity question mark. Oof. Maya didn't check social media. She didn't need to. She already knew the damage radius. Marcus called her at 7:42 a.m. on Sunday. His voice sounded like gravel dragged over concrete. "I ended it," he said without preamble. "Last night." Gave her the ring back. Texted every single guest that the wedding is canceled. "Venue's been notified. I'm done." Maya sat on the small balcony of her West Loop rental, cradling a mug of black coffee that had gone cold. The skyline stretched before her, clean, indifferent, beautiful in its indifference. "How are you?" she asked. "Like someone hollowed me out with a melon baller, but grateful. If you hadn't done what you did, I'd be planning a honeymoon right now." Believing every word she said. They met later that morning at the same quiet cafe near IIT, where they had first shared the truth. Marcus looked 10 years older, unshaven, eyes sunken, shirt wrinkled as though he'd slept in it. He carried no anger toward Maya, only a weary, bone-deep exhaustion. I'm not going to ask for a paternity test, he told her. If the child is mine, she can prove it, and we'll figure out co-parenting. Until then, I want zero contact. I can't look at her without seeing the lie. Maya nodded. You're allowed to protect yourself. They talked for hours about the 10 years he had given Chloe, about the wedding Pinterest board she had obsessively curated, about the way she had cried when he handed back the ring and said, simply, you broke us both. He didn't cry. He just looked empty. When they parted, he hugged her longer than usual. We survived architecture school together. We'll survive this too. In the weeks that followed, the fallout cascaded with clinical efficiency. David was placed on indefinite administrative leave from his senior vice president role at the fintech startup. The company's PR team issued a bland statement about personal matters and mutual agreement, but everyone understood image was currency, and David's had been debased beyond recovery. Clients began quietly shifting projects to other executives. Investors asked uncomfortable questions in board meetings. Within 6 weeks, the leave became permanent separation, framed as pursuing new opportunities. Chloe's boutique, specializing in ethically sourced fine jewelry and beloved by Chicago's influencer class, collapsed almost overnight. Custom orders were canceled. Influencers who once tagged her in stories now ghosted. Within 10 days, she posted a single photo of the locked storefront with a caption, temporarily closed due to unforeseen personal circumstances. 2 weeks later, the lease was terminated. She disappeared from social media entirely. Maya felt nothing triumphant. No rush of vengeance. Just a quiet acknowledgement. Consequences exist. Adults bear them. The divorce moved with startling speed. David offered no resistance. He signed every document Eleanor Vance prepared. Asset division, alimony waiver, Maya refused it anyway, debt allocation. The condo stayed hers. The art collection they had built together stayed with the condo. David kept his car, his personal savings account, untouched by the affair spending, and responsibility for the $92,000 in credit card debt he had quietly accumulated. If paternity was confirmed, he would pay child support per state guidelines. Nothing more, nothing less. The final decree was signed on a gray Thursday in early July. Maya sat in Eleanor's office, pen in hand, and felt nothing dramatic, just the soft click of completion. She thanked Eleanor, shook her hand, and drove straight back to her architecture studio. She treated the occasion like any other administrative milestone. File done, next project. She began rebuilding, not in a rush, not dramatically, but deliberately. She accepted commissions she would have once declined. A net-zero community center in Pilsen, a historic rehabilitation of a 1920s theater in Wicker Park, a speaking slot at a sustainability conference in Copenhagen. She traveled light, spoke with quiet authority, and returned home to Max, the 7-year-old German shepherd she had adopted from a city shelter. 2 months after moving out, Max had arrived wary, ribs faintly visible, eyes scanning every corner for threat. Maya understood that language. They walked together at dawn along the Riverwalk, sat together on the balcony at dusk, learned each other's rhythms. Trust rebuilt itself in small increments, a head on her lap, a tail wag when she came through the door. The first time he let her trim his nails without flinching. She started weekly therapy with Dr. Cecilia Reed, a calm, silver-haired psychologist who specialized in betrayal trauma. Maya didn't go because she was falling apart. She went because she refused to carry invisible shrapnel into whatever came next. 10 months after the decree, at an international architecture summit in New York, she met Julian Beaumont. He sat beside her in a panel on adaptive reuse of industrial structures. During Q&A, he leaned over and murmured a dry, insightful comment about load-bearing masonry that made her laugh. Quietly, unexpectedly, they talked through the coffee break, then through lunch, then exchanged cards. Julian was 42, divorced amicably 3 years earlier, father to 2 teenage sons who split time between Manhattan and Connecticut. He designed private residences for people who valued understatement over flash. His smile was easy, unguarded. His listening was the rare, attentive kind that made a person feel truly seen. There were no fireworks, no grand gestures, just conversation that flowed, then deepened, then became necessary. Texts turned to late-night calls. Calls turned to visits, first his to Chicago, then hers to New York. 4 months after that first meeting, on a late summer evening along the lakefront trail, they kissed as the sun sank behind, the skyline in shades of molten copper and bruised violet. Julian pulled back gently, searching her face. "Are you sure? I know what you've carried." Maya met his eyes,
I'm sure.
Not because the past is erased, because I've learned it doesn't get to write the ending. They married 6 months later in the Garfield Park Conservatory. Small, intimate ferns and palms arching overhead like living architecture. Marcus stood as her man of honor, steady now, dating a gentle yoga instructor whose warmth seemed to have thawed the last of his guarded edges. Julian's sons were there, awkward and sweet in their suits. Max wore a bow tie and sat obediently beside the first row. Julian moved to Chicago permanently the following spring. They bought a house in Evanston. Brick, 3 stories, wide windows. A deep backyard where Max could run. It was not sterile or showy. It was solid, lived in, theirs. In her 3rd trimester, Maya sat in an obstetrician's office holding Julian's hand while the ultrasound wand moved across her belly. The technician smiled. "Healthy baby girl. Everything looks perfect." Tears came then, joyful, grateful, cleansing. Julian kissed her temple, eyes shining. They named her Grace. Grace arrived on a crisp November morning at Northwestern Memorial, sunlight pouring through the labor room windows. Maya held the tiny, perfect bundle and felt something she hadn't expected. Overwhelming gratitude. Not for the betrayal, never that, but for the brutal path it had forced her down. Without it, no Julian. No Grace. No this life built on truth instead of illusion. Months later, over coffee with Marcus, she heard the final update. Chloe had given birth 3 months earlier, a girl. Paternity confirmed. David's. He paid support, but had waived all visitation and custody rights. Chloe had relocated to a small town in Washington state, opened a modest craft shop, and kept a low profile. Maya absorbed the news with distance. A faint sorrow for the child caught in the wreckage. No hatred, no pity, just acceptance. Everyone had moved forward, carrying the weight of their choices. One night, lying in bed with Julian's hand resting on the gentle curve that had once held Grace, he asked quietly, "Do you ever think about reaching out to David? Now that you're both parents?" Maya considered it for a long moment. "No," she said, "and I won't. His life is no longer my concern. He chose his path. I chose mine. They don't intersect anymore." Julian kissed her forehead. "You have more grace than most people I know." "I'm not graceful," she corrected softly. "I'm just finished drinking poison and waiting for someone else to suffer." When Grace was 6 months old, Maya sat on the back porch one evening watching. Julian pushed her gently on the wooden swing set they had installed together. Max lay at her feet, head on her knee. The sky was clear, stars beginning to prick through the twilight. She thought of the storm that had driven her into the Lumina lounge that March afternoon. She thought of the moment her eyes met David's across the room. She thought of the cold clarity that had followed, the meticulous gathering of truth, the public reckoning, the slow rebuilding. And she understood, finally and completely, happiness is not the absence of pain. It is the courage to walk through pain and emerge on the other side. It is the refusal to let someone else's betrayal rewrite your worth. It is the patient certainty that after the most violent storm, sunlight always returns. Maya leaned down, kissed the top of Max's head, then looked up at her husband and daughter, framed against the fading light. Grace laughed, a bright bubbling sound, and reached for Julian's face. Maya smiled, soft and sure. "Welcome to the life we built," she whispered to no one in particular. An honest life, a real one. And in that quiet, perfect moment, she let the last shadow of the past slip away, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with the calm, unshakable dignity of a woman who had looked truth in the eye, refused to flinch, and walked forward into light.